Hello, everyone, and welcome to another AMP podcast. I'm Kerry Cole, editor at Materials Performance Magazine, and this episode is part of a special series spotlighting the winners of the 2025 Materials Performance Innovation Awards, celebrating cutting-edge technologies that are driving progress in corrosion control and protective materials. Today, we're featuring one of this year's standout innovations in the corrosion control category, CR Tech, or corrosion-resistant technology, developed by ROCKWOOL Technical Insulation. CR Tech is a next-generation insulation solution designed to actively combat corrosion under insulation, or CUI, using a built-in corrosion inhibitor and advanced water repellency. Joining us is Osama Hamza, Innovation Director for ROCKWOOL, to talk about the science behind CR Tech, what this award means for their team, and how the technology is already making a difference in the field. Osama, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Gary. Pleasure.
So, for starters, will you tell us a little bit about ROCKWOOL?
Yeah, so ROCKWOOL is a Danish company, established almost 90 years ago, and specialized in producing what we call stone wool. I know most people use the term mineral wool, which covers both fiberglass and stone wool, but ROCKWOOL is actually very much specialized in stone wool and have always been. And it's a global company, as mentioned, based in Denmark with a headquarters in just outside Copenhagen in Denmark. But we have production facilities all over the world. I think in most European countries we have a production facility, and then of course in North America we have two production facilities or two plants, one in Mississippi and one in West Virginia, and then we're also establishing a new one in Washington State. In Canada, we also have two plants. So we also have factories in Asia and Russia as well. So very much a global company, but actually very much specialized and dedicated to the material of stone wool. And this is what we, all of us have this very strong kind of a belief that stone wool as a material has these very versatile applications and is and has been used and is still being developed into many different areas. I think most people would know stone wool from or mineral wool, if that's what the people usually call it, from the building industry. If anyone has tried insulating an attic or renovated at home or something like that, then you might be using a fiberglass material, or you might be using a stone wool material, which is what ROCKWOOL is producing. Fiberglass and stone wool differ a little bit. Stone wool has different acoustic properties and has very superior in terms of acoustic and so on. And then it also has a higher fire rating, so it's used for fire insulation. But other than that, they're mainly used also as thermal insulation for insulating attics, separation walls, facades, roofs, everything. And then over the years, ROCKWOOL has also expanded into a number of segments like insulation in ships, insulation in industry, and that's what this innovation is related to, the industrial segment and industrial insulation. But we also developed products for growing substrates and greenhouses and being used in rainwater drainage and so on. And still until this day today, after 90 years or almost 90 years, we still believe that the sky's the limit when it comes to developing new features and new applications for stone wool and so on. So that's what ROCKWOOL is all about.
Very helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
And of course, the big news, congratulations on winning the AMP Materials Performance Innovation Award.
Yeah. That was a big milestone. Yeah, it was a big recognition and big achievement. Yeah, we're very proud of that.
How did you find out that CR Tech had won, and what was your reaction?
Yeah, so I knew that we had been nominated around New Year. I also heard that we were in the final field and expecting to hear whether we've won the award or not. And then I think it was earlier this year, the beginning of the year. I'm based in Denmark, so there's a little bit of time difference between me and my colleagues in the US. And I think I was in in the grocery store, in the waiting in line, yeah, and then suddenly, checking my emails, and then I saw this email that said, "Yeah, we we won the award," and I was of course really happy. And unfortunately, I was standing there by myself. I was buying groceries, so I didn't have anyone to. But I think people around me, they could see, there was I it was a big news. So I was very proud. Yeah, very, very happy, very happy. And it's because it's a big honor. AMP is the place where we've been present at the conferences in AMP and NACE when it was called NACE before that for many years. And this is where we get our inspiration. This is where we introduce our products and so on. So being recognized in that scientific community among technical peers and people who I've met in previous years and so on. It was a big honor. Yeah, so it was a big moment. But actually, I I also have to say this was my second award because in 2019 we also won an award. So and I when we got nominated for this one this year, I thought, nah, can it be real? That could it be that we could win it again for another innovation? But yeah, we did. So yeah, that was a big moment. Yeah. But as I also said, we also believe that the sky is the limit when it comes to stone wool and new innovations and so on. So we're going for a hat trick, and then we'll see.
Absolutely. Never hurts to try again.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for people who might be thinking about nominating themselves for an award, can you tell us what that nomination process is like? And did you expect CR Tech to stand out in such a competitive field?
Yeah, it truly was a competitive field because when I met all the other nominees and so on, the conference and so on, I mean, there's some really great stuff being nominated there. But I think the nomination process usually, I mean, it starts with you as an innovator, believing deep inside that you're onto something, that is big, and you're ready to nominate it. And I think the nomination process also involves describing in some detail what the technology is and the novelty of it and the application of it and the benefit it has to a customer and so on. And then, yeah, and then in the end, crossing your fingers and hoping that, yeah, that you stand out.
Right. So, for our listeners who might not be familiar with corrosion under insulation or CUI, can you briefly explain why it's such a challenging issue and how CR Tech directly addresses it?
Yeah, so CUI is actually it's been in focus area for us for some years, and like I mentioned, this is the second innovation award we win at AMP, and the first one that we won in 2019 was also related to CUI. So it's been something that we've been working with for some time. I should also mention that when I say we, it's the division in ROCKWOOL that works with technical insulation. So that's where, as mentioned, most of ROCKWOOL products are used in building industry, but we also have a lot of different applications and different areas where stone wool is also used. And one of them is insulation in industrial applications. So people should imagine, refineries and pipelines and industrial facilities and so on, where you have high temperatures, where you want to control temperature for the sake of process, and you want to transport liquids or gases in pipes, or you want to store them in tanks or vessels, and you want to protect either your employees from high temperatures, or you want to conserve the temperature inside and so on. And that's when you use insulation. So it's in the industrial area. And that's where CUI or corrosion comes into the picture because in these environments, like mentioned, we're dealing with high temperatures, but it's also a harsh environment in the sense that it's a lot of facilities outside exposed to weather. In many cases, there's also a corrosive environment because of the emissions or some of the materials being used in a facility and so on. So, and in many cases, especially in terms of oil and gas industry and so on, a lot of these facilities are located in coastal areas because usually, operators want to be close to the global market and being able to ship products out to the global market and so on. So usually they are close to terminals and harbors and so on. So it's usually also coastal areas. So in general, all these factors add to the corrosive environment around the facility. And what this means is that, as you can imagine, if you're an operator of a refinery, that you would have kilometers and kilometers of piping and large areas of steel which is insulated. And the problem with that is that when you have a corrosive environment like that, is that you always have, and you're also exposed to weather, you always have the risk of water, rainwater, condensation, or water coming in into the insulation system. And that usually happens through joints and or through damages and the jacketing. And then you have water seeping in under the insulation, and then because of the high temperatures, then you have a corrosive environment and a corrosion process. And the problem is that you never know where it happens and when it happens. You always have this underlying risk that there's corrosion in your facilities spreading. And one of the main ways of being on top of that is doing frequent inspections, which are costly and they interrupt operations and so on. And that's why when choosing materials and designing facilities, operators are usually using, the corrosion performance is usually a design criteria. So when choosing an insulation material, they usually look at, how does this material perform in terms of corrosion, and does it mitigate risk of corrosion and so on. And that's where ROCKWOOL and stone wool comes into the picture, because as if any of the listeners can imagine that the stone wool is a fibrous material, if you try to use it at home for insulating an attic or something like that, then it's a fibrous material that acts a little bit like a sponge, and it's not difficult to imagine that it could absorb water and then pull water into the system. And that's why we in ROCKWOOL wanted to address this issue, and that was the first issue that we wanted to address, which is water absorption. So we said, okay, how can we address the performance of the water absorption as a performance criteria, and make wool or our product water repellent. So we did that, and we spent a lot of development energy and resources on doing that. And then the next step was to do the corrosion inhibitor, which is the innovation that we won the award for. And I can get into details of each one of these and what they do.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, this actually came a lot from the interaction that I had at AMP and NACE, when it was called NACE some years ago. When I would go to the conference and be at the technical sessions and so on, and also interact with peers, what I would see is that I would see a lot of different materials than stone wool. And we quickly realized that different materials have different strengths and different weaknesses. And that's when the idea emerged that we should see how we can compensate or eliminate any weaknesses that our material has, and maybe let ourselves inspire by some of the strengths that other materials have. So basically eliminate any weaknesses that stone wool might have, and add any strengths that other materials have into stone wool. I was walking around with this belief that we could really, upgrade any weaknesses and any strengths, and then upgrade this material into a superior materials when it comes to corrosion. And like I mentioned, water absorption was one of the first issues or parameters or factors that we wanted to address. So we said, okay, we have to do something about water absorption. And a lot of people had this perception that stone wool was, being a fibrous material, that it would absorb a lot of water. So we wanted to address that. And first step was to develop a water repellent technology, which we implemented into the wool and into the material. And we succeeded with that. So if you can imagine, if you grab a piece of wool in your hand, and you would submerge it in a bucket of water under the surface of water, and then you would take it out, the wool would then repel water completely. So it would be dry and not absorb any water. So it would act like a complete different material suddenly. It was acting like foam or a piece of cork or something like that. And that was what we went for. So really upgrading the performance of stone wool in that sense. and that's when we said, okay, so now we've developed the water repellent property, and now our material is repelling water and keeping water out of the system. And that's when we won the award in 2019 for that technology. And then when I was at these conferences, it was actually in Nashville, this year. And when I was at that conference, I would also look at all the other materials being presented and some of our competitors and so on. And I could see that some of them were presenting a corrosion inhibiting performance in their material. And I was thinking, okay, so how can we do something like that in stone wool? So now we've addressed the water repellency, how can we add a corrosion inhibiting performance into the same material? And the idea was that, the wool being water repellent keeps water out, but if water comes in through any joints or something like that, there's like a second line of defense. There's like an additional feature, which is a corrosion inhibitor. And that inhibitor would then, be as part of the product, and sitting there, ready to react with any moisture that comes in, and then act as a second line of defense in a facility when it's being used. And that's when the idea came of developing this corrosion inhibitor that we also started developing. And the development was it was really a journey where we took it from idea stage all the way to seeing the first product rolling out of the factory. And and that's the CR Tech technology, which is basically the corrosion inhibitor. And that's the technology that we won the award for this year. So as you can hear, it's been a COI journey for ROCKWOOL, where we've been dealing with this for years and really taking step after step in upgrading the performance of stone wool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So thank you for explaining that and give us a little behind the scenes look at the process. It's very interesting. So the test results look impressive. 5 times better performance in ASTM G189 and resistance even with high chloride levels in ASTM C1617. So what do these results mean in real-world industrial applications?
Yeah, so the thing with corrosion is that it takes years for corrosion in the natural environment to occur. And out in the field, it could occur in year 1 or it could occur in year 20. In order to test how a material performs with corrosion, you can't be sitting and waiting for it for 20 years until you see a result. So what the industry has developed is a test method for an accelerated corrosion test. So they call it an accelerated corrosion test, which is a test method that basically simulates the environment over many years, but compresses it into a manageable period of maybe a few weeks. And the way to do it is by simulating this worst case harsh environment where you have a piece of metal, and that's how the G189 test is done. And the one that we've based a lot of our testing on, because we really feel that this is very close to what's out in the field. So you have a pipe which is insulated, so it's wrapped in a piece of stone wool insulation, a pipe section, and then you drill a hole through the insulation, and then you pump water through that hole. So you basically simulate that you have a piping system. There's a damage somewhere, and there's a lot of rainfall, and then water comes in and starts seeping into the pipe, and then you have the trouble. So and at the same time, we also heat up and cool down the pipe, and this way you have the cyclical temperature regime, which also accelerates corrosion. So really trying to make the worst case scenario and seeing how the material performs. And we did that, and we also did it with both with rainwater, but we also simulated corrosive water with chlorides and so on. And we really tried, and still pushing this performance to the maximum in worse and worst case scenarios. And to this day today, I'm still being impressed by some of the results that we see from it in terms of longevity, in terms of the duration, durability, and so on. So yeah, I mean, the initial results were really looking good, but we're still getting very nice results from this. Also, when we compare with some of the other materials out in the field, out in the market, which usually are also performing very well, then this is really, it's really on par with some of the best materials out there. Yeah, it's really nice to see, because we really, took this development from the beginning, from scratch, from an idea, and then seeing it perform like this was it's a pleasure, to work with.
Yes, must be very rewarding.
Yeah, it
Thank you
is.
for that. So, which industries or environments stand to benefit the most from this technology? And have you seen interest from any particular sectors?
Yeah, our main segment or our main industry that we're targeting is, in a broad sense, is all industrial applications. Wherever you have high temperatures involved, and especially outdoor installations, piping and piping systems and pipelines and so on. That's where you also have CUI, risk of CUI, which is corrosion under insulation. And at the same time, a more targeted segment would be oil and gas segment, and that's where we also, so far, I've seen the best and most of the interest from some of the big players in the industry, and we also have the new product in testing in the field in a few areas, also different geographical areas and so on, and different conditions with some of the big oil and gas players, because we wanted to, other than the accelerated corrosion testing that I just explained, we also want to develop some field testing. And that's where the testing that takes many years. But then if you want to have it, you'll have to start early. So we have it installed in a number of places in the industrial oil and gas facilities. And yeah, waiting to monitor it over the coming years and try to generate some field results. But I think also after launching it, and that's a little bit the challenge with launching a new product, that when you launch a new product, a lot of customers want to see 20-year data, right? And you don't have that because the product is new. So that's a little bit challenging. So we've had to simulate durability testing in a way in the lab. But I think over the years, we'll start getting more and more field results from operators who've been using this for years and years. And yeah, I expect that from ROCKWOOL will be very actively seeking to compile these results and then sharing them with the industry as time goes by.
So, as you learn, what do you see as far as CR Tech evolving over the next few years? Are there additional enhancements you're looking at?
Yeah, we are actually looking at a few different product types where this could be relevant. We introduced it on pipe sections because that's where usually the highest occurrence of incidents, CUI incidents, is usually on pipes and piping systems. But we're also looking at introducing it to other product types. And at the same time, we're also looking at the next innovation and the next line of defense for a customer against CUI. All the time looking at how can the insulation product support and contribute to reducing the risk of corrosion. We addressed the water repellency with the first innovation. We addressed the corrosion inhibitor performance with the second innovation, and we're looking at the next one and the next one. So yeah, like I said, we're going for a hat trick when it comes to innovation awards, but also, I mean, in general, also looking to push the technology and keep pushing stone wool and the performance of stone wool, and keep pushing the boundaries of what stone wool can do. And we still believe that the sky is the limit, and we've just started on this development journey.
So, lastly, what advice would you give to other engineers or material scientists who are pursuing their own innovations in corrosion control?
Yeah, I mean, a good place is to come to AMP. That's where you meet. That's what I have done personally, because that's where you meet a high concentration of basically all the experts in the field, and it's very impressive. You meet people from all over the world, from the States, from South America, from Europe, Asia, and it's the leading experts. It's people with hands-on experience from the field. It's operators, it's scientists, and so on. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on an AMP podcast, but this is really where I got a lot of the inspiration and actually also a lot of the knowledge and a lot of the learnings about how CUI works from AMP. And then another thing is, really, really understand the material that you're working with, and see how you can make these two things meet, the material that you're selling and the CUI performance, and see how you can close gaps and upgrade performances and so on.
So, this wraps up this episode of our AMP podcast. A big thank you to Osama Hamza for joining us and sharing insights into the development of CR Tech. And congratulations again to ROCKWOOL.
Thanks.
If you'd like to learn more about this year's award winners, be sure to visit materialsperformance.com and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thank you for listening. Again, this has been Kerry Cole, editor of Materials Performance. Please join us next time for our next AMP podcast.
This September 8th through the 10th, all roads lead to Odessa, Texas for the AMPP Central Conference, where the future of corrosion and coatings comes to life. From AI-driven pipeline integrity and advanced cathodic protection monitoring to cutting-edge AC interference strategies, this is where innovation meets infrastructure. Dive into groundbreaking technical sessions tailored to the challenges of the Central U.S. and the Permian Basin. Advanced registration is now open. Secure your spot today and save. Register now at ampp.org/central-conference.